Okay, this lesson for the Koine Project Class, we'll look at Matthew 7:11 one more time and use the Koine Old Testament called the Septuagint. And this will just take a few moments because we've covered this considerably in discussing depravity. That concept that we discovered had no lexical definition. What we'll do now is discuss just what does it mean when Jesus said, while being evil ones, you all have noticed and continue to notice to be giving good gifts to your children. So let's look quickly. Go back Genesis 2:9, the Septuagint, the tree of the result to have noticed and continue to notice. That's a perfect infinitive, and that's from the word G1492, a knowable thing. So something that's knowable, it's objective, and it's acquired through this insight. So by this insight we have, we can now notice something knowable. And here we have the knowable thing is of good and of evil. And this poniroū is from G4190. Matthew 7:11, since therefore you yourselves, while being evil ones, G4190, have noticed and continue to notice, that's G1492, gifts, good gifts, to be giving good gifts to the children of you all. Now, these are children who can ask for bread, and Jesus said you won't give them a stone, and they can ask for fish, and the Father won't give them a serpent. So we know if we use the inverse of that, that the Father who would give a stone and a serpent would be knowingly negligent and be abusive to his child in depriving bread and fish. So the fact that this is conjoined good and evil, and interesting, good is listed first. So there's no case where a person is doing evil without noticing good that they should be doing, or there's no case where a person's doing good without the condition of being evil. But what's the condition of being evil? It was the acquisition of the aptitude, mental aptitude, insight to notice this knowable thing is now good conjoined with evil. Nothing will ever change that. So whatever the debates are, as we learned in Total Hereditary Depravity, they're based on formed categories, concepts, and writings of whatever that just are endless in the banter. So as we move on, we now are noticing, intentionally noticing, what is it about this condition, since we're now aware of this knowledge. The scriptures give us revelation of all of it. As I've said before, if God were playing cards in a card game, he doesn't seem to be playing to win because he's laid all of his cards on the table so that man is without excuse. So we go on to now Ezekiel 18:14 says, if, speaking of a father, but if he might father a son, and he might, speaking of the son, see, I think that is from ōráω, but I think that's in the same class as this insight, might see all the sins of the father of him. So now that's empirical observation. He's actually by empirical observation, he sees all the sins of his father, and it says which he did, speaking of his father did, and the son he might fear and might not do according to them. And God was actually defending his own character against his own covenant community members who were saying the father has chewed green grapes, but the son is not grinding his teeth. And they were saying it was inevitable that the consequences of the sins of a father would be visited, imposed unjustly, obviously, upon subsequent generations. Now, what does that do about people who don't include this in the conversation of the ability or inability to believe? We're actually speaking of ability to be persuaded. And as those who have noticed, and we continue to notice, we have this conjoined reality of good and evil. So even while being evil, we can be persuaded by the gospel to believe Jesus Christ, believe his promise for everlasting life, believe that the gift he gives us is everlasting life, irrevocable gift of everlasting life. So that is fascinating when we come to this and notice that now we know what it means. Being evil is insight of this objective thing, which is knowledge of good and of evil. So within the purview of good and evil, both. And then Deuteronomy 139, I notice this was about children, a son. So this is a young man, a young adult, young person who can notice, see, and the father's sins. Here we have children who have the age and aptitude to ask for bread and fish. And Adam and Eve were adults here. Deuteronomy 139, and every toddler, that's newly born toddler, which certain one did not notice. Now there's that word again, G1492. G14. Notice on that day, notice here, good or evil. Isn't it interesting? We have this word good, agatha, like the name Agatha. And here we have it here. Then we have kakon, from kakos, evil. We have poniroū, evil, which we can look at those words and increase our knowledge within the purview of good and evil. So have a blessed day, but this is what it means when we say, while being evil ones, we have this insight to objective reality within the purview of good and evil. So have a blessed day. Enjoy this lesson.